What the fuck? They just...
Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters.
Oh, we're getting to the good shit.
And Bill Hemmer. 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five.
Wait, they don't even have a liberal. Oh, my God. They usually have one liberal on the panel, like the supposed liberal. She's not even on today. What the fuck?
In history, former President Donald Trump on his way back to Florida after surrendering himself at a Manhattan courthouse. He was arrested, fingerprinted, and pled not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. We're expecting to hear from President Trump later tonight. Brian Yennis is outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan to break down the charges. Brian.
Jesse, good evening. That's right. So former President Trump charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records here in the state of New York. Just moments ago, well, about a couple hours ago, the district attorney of Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, laid out his case. Listen.
Donald Trump was arraigned on a New York Supreme Court indictment returned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about.
So DA Bragg is charging former President Trump with 34 felony counts. That's a felony count for every single falsified business record that they have in evidence, apparently. Now, as he mentioned, in New York, in order to be found guilty of a felony count or be charged with a felony count, you have to be found to have been trying to hide or a second crime. So in this case, what Bragg is alleging is that essentially former President Trump falsified business records in furtherance of his 2016 presidential election, which is a violation of New York state election law, because under New York state election law, you can't be promoting a candidate or your candidacy under unlawful means. That's as best as we have, as we see it based on his press conference in terms of understanding the charges. Now, in terms of what happened inside the courtroom, the former president did not say a word. He sat stoically. Our courtroom producer, Jake Gibson, says that at one point he described the former president walking into the courtroom with swagger. He stared down Alvin Bragg before he was looking so hot. He verbally pleaded not guilty to all 34 counts. There were two big motions that happened inside that courtroom.
He was looking so fucking
One was
sexy,
about timing.
dude.
The other was about a potential gag order. The prosecution bringing up posts on Truth Social that the former president had posted that they believed could have incited violence.
I'm getting reports from the courthouse that he was hot. He was looking tight and thick. Like a daddy.
They implied that they wanted one. And in that case, Judge Juan Merchan said that he was going to request that Trump not further post things that could incite violence, and that if he were, then that they would revisit that request. And the second big thing that happened inside there was about timing. The prosecution asking for this case to be pushed all the way to January, which would be right at the heart and the start of the Republican primary election season. The defense wanted this case to be pushed back even further. They found that this case, the next hearing will now be December 4th, and that former President Trump must be here in person. The defense argued, why should the former president be here in person? You can understand the undue burden that has put on the city of New York. That argument rang on deaf ears, and Judge Juan Merchan said the former president needs to be here December 4th for the next hearing. Jesse, guys.
Ryan, thanks so much. Judge Janine Pirro, you spent some time in the...
There are some people I know whose brains were genuinely altered by their hate for Trump, and they're going to have such a long depression after this is over, like coming down from a bender. Oh, yeah, this is like doing the greatest, most pure form of MDMA for an entire week long, and then just coming down from it, and your brain is zapped permanently.
A hearing to submit motions or to get a decision on motions. Okay, it is ministerial. It's where the prosecutor, the judge, and the defense attorney get together, and there is either a decision issued on the motion or there is the discussion that they'll argue the motions. But the overall response that I have to all of this is it's less significant than I thought it would be in the first place. This is a whole lot of nothing, and you know, defense attorneys have done that in every case case I ever tried as a prosecutor, and I never thought I'd do it to an indictment myself. First of all, the indictment is insufficient on its face. What that means is that the prosecutor does not allege what the other crime is. So he's saying he falsified records with intent to commit another crime. We don't know what the other crime is, and even Alvin Bragg, when he was asked about it, said, well, we had evidence this time that they didn't have last time as it related to why now. But in addition to that, we've got election law. And we've got text messages and emails. What are you talking about? Why not identify the crime that is giving you the ability to take a dead misdemeanor and give it new life, like a phoenix rising out of the out of the sand? Now, if
I think that part is pretty clear, right? I mean, it's like an attempt to hide, an affair, like doing a catch and kill.
Of 2017. That means you've got the same course of conduct. They're just looking at it differently. Okay, so nobody get excited about the 34 counts. They're meaningless. And there will also be a bill of particulars. In the bill of particulars, which is required to be submitted in New York State within 15 days, it may be extended to 35 if the judge wants to give the DA a break. They've got to be real clear on what the bill of particulars says, because the defendant has the right to prepare for trial. And this is garbage. You don't have a right to prepare. You don't know what to prepare for on this. And by the way, you know, the whole concept that Bragg gets up and he talks about, you know, this is New York. We are the center of the financial world and all that hogwash doesn't explain why he takes every felony he can find, 50% at the bare minimum, and turns it into misdemeanors, but wants this misdemeanor to be a felony. And why did the defense have to come back? Why does why does Donald Trump have to come back in December when it's going to cost New York City millions of dollars? And any prosecutor would consider the cost to the city or the county in deciding whether or not the appearance of the defendant is necessary. And I mean, I could go on, but
well, should we hear from the other lawyer at the table? We got one sitting right here. Would you like to say anything about what the judge just asserted?
So this is a tough day. I think anytime, and I watched the president's face as he left Trump Tower, and I watched him as the pictures that we saw.
So Austin said this is going to be good for Trump, and he's right. Okay, it is. It is going to be good for Trump. It gives him a lot of media coverage. It reinforces the narrative that Trump is constantly under prosecution for a witch hunt. Part of the reason why it's good for Donald Trump is because, you know, this is not that significant. Even if they were to hit him with the fucking maximum sentence, like like going to jail over this, going to prison over this would be literally unimaginable. Okay. So just understand that. That's why it's a low stakes situation. That's why he's been flexing. That's why he's been utilizing this as best as possible to fundraise. He even fucking took a photo of himself with a fake mugshot, because no such mugshot unfortunately exists, and plastered it on a T-shirt and started selling it, literally as he was walking into the arraignment. It doesn't really matter if it's good for Trump if he loses the case and gets convicted. I think ultimately, even if he gets convicted, if you think that he's going to jail over it, I don't know what to tell you.
Aware of some of the allegations that from some of the women that are talked about, the two women that are talked about in this, and we all know what Michael Cohen did. I think the question now, I think for the president and his legal team, is how quickly do they want to go forward with this? Meaning, they will file the requisite motions to dismiss. It'll be interesting to see how the judge reacts. I'm going to assume his lawyers are going to lay out that these matters.
You can get convicted and not go to jail. Guys, you're looking at maximum prison sentences for what the crime is, and it's already an elevated to a felony crime. The misdemeanor max sentence is a year. No one is doing that. No one's going to jail for a year over the misdemeanor. And the way to tie this into a federal, the way to tie this into a felony, Trump might have enough. Trump might have given them enough information to be able to do that successfully. But even then, it's 4 years. Like, I feel like there's no way.
So I was disappointed, Judge, that he didn't do it there.
Yeah,
that's all my point. And I'd hope that he does it before too long.
And Harris, the president right now is en route to Mar-a-Lago, where he will be addressing many people tonight at 8:15, we believe.
I want to unpack this in backwards order here. So the file motions will come in August. That's when the defense can move on that.
4 years for each
December
count?
4th,
Yeah, no,
I had some thoughts
that's
about
not
that,
happening.
Judge. They didn't get what they wanted. They were hoping that it was going to be crazy. And that judge was going to be able to slap on a gag order and you've been cited and you've done all that. And he was buttoned up because the Secret Service handled him. You didn't see the cuffs. You didn't see any of that. They set the rules. They set the tone. They protected him. And so they didn't get the circus that I was on when that news conference happened yesterday with the police commissioner and Mayor Eric Adams, and how, we're getting ready and to Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, you better be on your best behavior and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, talk about incitement. Why don't you?
For people who are saying, can a felon run for president? The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, people have run for president from prison.
I caught what you were talking about in the first four. I saw some dates, like April 13th, 2017. That's a loaded date. They're going to do a lot with that date. And I don't have your acumen as a judge.
Sorry, when I say socialist, I didn't mean Eugene Debs, actually. I meant Joey Exotic. Yes, that's right. Tiger King. There's nothing in the law that stops you from running for president from jail.
Harold said nothing is new in this case. They're going backward to the person that they know tells the most lies, gets away with it until he didn't legally. And that date, April 13, 2017, we've already seen him in the Access Hollywood video with Billy Bush and all that. That's in here. I didn't understand how that fit with a white-collar crime, which Alvin Bragg says that's the kind of crime that New York City attorneys go after, district attorneys. Well, I'm glad I know the kind of crime he goes after, because violent crime is rampant. So at least there's something that he's going to fight. And then
it's always funny when they make this argument, like they're just like letting rapists roam free. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, dude, totally. The DA is like making sure that violent crime is allowed in the war zone of New York City, which, by the way, like, New York City crime is still lower than like most other fucking cities. Okay. New York crime in general, violent crime in the state of New York across the board is significantly lower, almost 3 times lower than South Carolina, for example. Okay? People that constantly fucking say like, oh man, crime is out of control. Crime is out of control in New York. Crime is out of control in New York. They just literally live in Oklahoma and don't fucking realize that it's higher in Oklahoma. Okay? That's it. That's, ironically, they watch too much fucking TV and they literally think that crime is happening at a way higher fucking frequency and way more likely to happen to you if you are in New York City than in Oklahoma. When it's worse in Oklahoma. Because that's what Television Man is telling you. I live in New York City and my fox-pilled Trumper dad thinks I'm on the verge of being murdered every day. Yeah, exactly. It's such a wild state of affairs where, like, objectively it is untrue and it doesn't matter.
Even CNN thinks this is thin. Look, we've got 5 people around a table right now. They've had 7 people around a table since noon today, and it continues at this hour. Last hour, that a former counsel, U.S. Assistant AG, saying it's pretty underwhelming. These facts have been out there for 7 years. John Bolton, no friend of Donald Trump today, right? He wasn't buying it. He said this complaint can easily be dismissed. It's that thin. Bolton's got a legal background as well. All these comments really surprised me quite a bit. But Harris, you mentioned something about the reality in New York today, and we can get that throughout the hour here. But I would just remind everybody that 2 weeks ago today, President Xi was in Moscow meeting with Vladimir Putin for 3 days. Not 3 hours, not for some photo op in Red Square and the fly back to Beijing, for 3 days. And what do you think they were talking about? More than just the land borders between Russia and China that they still have some disputes to this day. They're talking about how they're going to divide up the world. And the decisions that Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, is now making in Saudi Arabia about, a peace deal with Iran. China's in the middle of that. He's inviting Assad to a summit that will take place in Saudi Arabia. All of this is happening while we're watching this.
And he cut oil production, too.
And he cut oil production to a million a day.
I love when they talk about this stuff only exclusively when it's like about Donald Trump.
I'm a child of cable news. I grew up in it almost 28 years, and I love it. But every channel throughout the past 14 hours has been on the Trump story. There's a lot of important matters happening in the world outside of this.
Right, and it was a Bush League indictment if you read it, and everybody expected more, and we do expect to hear more from the president tonight at 8:15 from Mar-a-Lago. Bill Hemmer?
Well, we will see that tonight at 8:15, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll be watching that to see what he has to say. Alvin Bragg, though, the DA here in Manhattan, Jesse, defending this historic decision to charge former President Trump with 34 counts of falsifying business records.
I've been doing this for 24 years. I don't bring cases prior to a thorough and rigorous investigation. Now, having done so, the case has been brought.
Why now?
Well, as I just mentioned, we have had available to the office additional evidence that was not in the office's possession prior to my time here. The basis for business integrity and a well-functioning business marketplace is true and accurate record keeping. That's the charge that's brought here, falsifying New York State business records.
Okay,
yeah,
so
thank
Bragg's
God they're
decision
making
flies in
sure
the face
New
of
York
the
doesn't get
American
away
people
with
think about the politics
misconduct
of this
in business.
indictment. While 60% say they approve of the charges, an overwhelming 76% say politics played a role.
They glanced over the 60% number so fast.
Just came out this week. Back with us out here.
Yeah,
Alvin
it
Bragg
seems like
said,
Americans
I think the quote was,
overwhelmingly
"We cannot
are
and
like,
will
yeah,
not
fuck Donald
normalize
Trump,
serious
actually.
criminal
We know it's politics, but we don't give a
I
fuck.
think you've had 35,000 cops who haven't had a day off since last Friday. If you want to criminalize serious conduct, come to my neighborhood, because I can show you a ton of it in my subway stop where I live. Janine, this will come back into focus.
This man has never been on a subway train, okay? Shut the fuck up. What do you mean, dude?
On that.
Because
what are they doing at the subway station at your neighborhood, dog?
Democrat prosecutor, and a lot of these Democrat cities that are not interested in the victim of crime. I've spent 32 years of my life fighting for that crime victim, and they are now being ignored. And when you get to the point where you bring an indictment against a former president of the United States running for president again, talk about, a third world country. I mean, it better be serious. This is not serious. Harris said Michael Cohen's in that indictment. This guy, you can't, every time he opens his mouth, he's lying. Whether it's Congress, whether it's on television, he is a perjurer. And they want to rest the indictment on his testimony. And I got one better.
There's a second person here that's like being considered a star witness, and his name is Pecker, okay? His name is Pecker.
They didn't have before. Hogwash. After this guy Costello came in and testified in the grand jury saying that Michael Cohen was a nut job and a liar, who did they bring back? They brought back David Pecker from AMI. I mean, David Pecker, that whole catch and kill, they knew that in 2016, 2015, 2017. There's nothing new here. So one of the additional charges that they can use in this case is not just selective prosecution, but in the motion to dismiss, there is a delay. And there was a recent Court of Appeals case in New York in a rape case. A rape case, no less, where the Court of Appeals said, you waited too long. And this is beyond the statute of limitations. That case was not. That case was not. There was not a 30-30 problem, and I won't explain it. But they've got a lot of explaining to do. This case should not get past the sufficiency of the indictment stage.
Yes, Alvin Bragg did do one thing today, Harold. He completed a campaign promise, did he not? I mean, when he was running for this office, he said he was proud of the fact that he sued Donald Trump hundreds of times, I believe was the quote he used, and that he was going to go after him yet again. And for a while there, it seemed like you couldn't even run for office in New York unless you said, I'm going to get Trump. Today, did he take a step in that direction?
I don't know. Well, he obviously took a step because he brought an indictment against the former president. I'd say two things. One, I think all the points you made, Bill, about the things that are happening around the globe, we should focus on that a lot more everywhere. And I think there's no shortage of things that we sometimes focus on in the media that we should not, because I agree with you. What that balloon that has been misrepresented about what it was gathering and what's happened in China, that's something we should focus on a lot more. Two, I was disappointed today only because I thought more was going to be there, but that doesn't mean that nothing is there. And I think that the things that the president's going to have to answer for, his lawyers will do that. And seems like he's got a top-notch legal team, and we'll see what happens. Now, I think you raise a larger problem about DAs. We shouldn't elect. This woman here was elected DA, and she may have run on a platform of fighting crime and making communities safer, and he did too. He made it as an element, one of the elements going after Donald Trump, and voters here in New York voted for him. I happen to believe that we shouldn't elect judges or DAs, but that's just me. I don't think that should be they shouldn't be out campaiging in those offices.
So how would they get there? You just want them to get there by
rising? I would appoint them like we do judges. It's the same way.
Backroom politics.
Yeah. We should appoint them with the Republican Party saying this is how we should.
But
this is who we should put there.
You can't say he ran on a platform that he delivered on.
Actually, you can.
But Harris, let me just finish.
I'll wait for you to
finish.
The
lib. He's the lib. They always put the lib right here.
Of the fact that he did that.
Hold on, I got to pee. I'll be
what
back.
Our process is. I think DAs should not. I don't think we should elect judges either, because by definition, you know what that means? That means those offices are politicized. Finally, I hope tonight, Harris, I want to answer your point. I think you raised the salient point tonight for President Trump. I hope he focuses. He entered his plea of not guilty, and he is presumed innocent. Every Democrat and Republican should know he is innocent this evening until and unless evidence and facts are proven in a courtroom and a jury believes otherwise. Two, if I were him, I'd focus on why I wanted to run for president and lay out all of the issues, including some of the things that you raised, Bill, about what's happening in China, including inflation and some of those things. That's why people, I think, are going to elect him or not elect him as the Republican nominee, and eventually, if he is a nominee up against a Democrat.
Harris, your name was invoked.
It certainly was. A couple things. Again, in reverse order. I don't think you need to worry about what Trump will figure on and where he's going to focus. He went to East Palestine, Ohio, when it was hell. It was still on fire. When did Biden go?
I was saying you're right. I wasn't arguing. I think he should say those things.
I'm helping
I think
you
he
tell
should
me
say
that
those
I'm
things.
right.
Again, on that part, you're exactly right.
Honestly, if you look at what he's been doing versus, and we'll get into it a little bit later in the show, where is Biden is the segment. But when you look at what he's capable of doing, he can make the tide rise if he wants. The current president hasn't been able to do that on the economy, and he's been gone since last week. He's had a couple of gaffes. He needs to figure out where the twisters hit in Mississippi. Maybe he'll do that next. But when you talk about Alvin Bragg and how things are, he has a choice. He doesn't have to run and say, I'm going to pin everything on going after one guy. He did that so that his staff would stop leaving. They said, you're not going to go after Trump. We're out. Pomerantz, who wrote the book you're holding right there, right? I'm out. You're not going after Trump. You're breaking your campaign promise. And that's when he said, well, I didn't say I wasn't going to go after him. I just want to have a better case. Was today a better case?
Yeah.
You're an attorney.
It seems to be.
I didn't see it. I read the statement
Oh, you
of
didn't
facts.
see it?
I read the
Okay.
indictment.
Good thing that
It's
you're talking
pretty
about it
dry,
then.
no.
Well, technically no one on the Fox News payroll saw it. Or even if they saw it, they looked away.
Is a laughing stock. We were on the edge of our seats waiting for the DA to come out and say he had video.
Here's the thing. Are the charges like trumped up? Absolutely. Is there still enough information there as far as we've seen? Also, certainly. Like, that's it.
Because the man couldn't sell it. If you can't explain the charge in 30 seconds, you don't have a case. And the man could not explain the charge. He didn't even put the felony charge, the election charge, in the indictment and said, no, I didn't really have to. So get out of here, man. You're charging the former president and you didn't even say what the charge is? Come on. So he's spending how many millions of dollars on this circus. He's shutting down the FDR Drive.
Yep.
He's hiring how many police officers? How much manpower is going into the DA's office on this case alone? Meanwhile, you got a crime wave out here, and he has the nerve to come out and say he doesn't want to normalize, crime. Come on, man. His case is built on a disbarred lawyer who served prison time for lying, a porn actress who actually had to pay Trump because she lied about the NDA, and Michael Avenatti, who, where is he now? Oh, actually, he's in prison. So this is the crux of the case.
So was Michael Cohen, though.
And I got to tell you, you're putting Donald Trump.
Michael Avenatti is in prison for fucking over his clients, isn't he? Like, what do you mean? If anything, it's like, it's not Stormy Daniels' fault. What the fuck? Like,
on this date.
No, extortion.
And you got towers and you got windows.
Oh, my God.
You think that's good for this country to put a man like that in a certain location December 4th? Mm-hmm. And then what if it goes to trial? He has to be there every day.
Yeah, he stole.
You think
yeah,
the Secret
I was right.
Service...
He stole millions of dollars from his clients, one of whom was a paraplegic with mental health issues. And for obstructing the IRS's efforts to collect more than $3 million in payroll.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we're going to put him down for that. In a moment here, Trump's legal team ready for a major battle after the former president pleads not guilty on 34 felony counts this afternoon.
Yeah, they're basically. I'm confused. Stormy Daniels a victim or accomplice? What do you mean? No, Stormy Daniels is the person that they paid hush money to. I mean, she's always a victim because she fucked Donald Trump. Okay? In many ways, she is a victim of, the act of having sexual intercourse with Donald Trump. Finally, we're back on Fox 5. Let's hear what other unhinged shit they have to say.
After his predecessor was arrested and charged with 34 felony counts in New York City today.
Make the noise. What the fuck do you mean?
More. Peter.
And Harris, I've known President Biden answer a shouted question a time or two during his time at the White House, and we know that he could hear the shouted questions from the small group of pool reporters that were rotated in to his event today, because he answered one about artificial intelligence. But then when the topic of Trump came up, he just smiled. Watch this.
Is the indictment of your
Dude, this is so awesome that they're mad at this.
So a big smile. He heard it. Nothing substantial, though. And a few minutes before that event, a White House press briefing wrapped, and it was kind of surreal being in there because they called the 2-minute warning for us to go sit down just about a minute after we watched on live TV as Trump walked into the courthouse in New York City. And there were some questions about this because it's not a political thing. Usually if we ask a political question, they say we can't talk about that. That's the Hatch Act. Well, President Biden is not a 2024 candidate yet, so we didn't hear anything about the Hatch Act. It's also not a Biden DOJ thing because they like to say he does not direct the DOJ who to investigate, who not to, but this is a state level thing in Manhattan. So we tried like this. All that anybody in the country is talking about at this exact moment.
This is gray name shit, dude. I told you.
Trump, does the lack of comment mean that you do not think anything happening in New York today?
This is gray name shit.
One of the top issues facing the country at the moment.
That's your assessment. That's not my assessment. I'm just laying out the facts that we are just not going to comment.
Bro, literally, this is when gray names come into the chat and go, oh, talk about this, talk about this, talk about that. They go crazy over it. And then they're upset because they're not getting the actual answer that they want. Because if anyone gave them the actual answer that they want, they would go, oh my God, look how political this is. Oh my God, oh my God. So when the president doesn't fucking take the bait and the press the press secretary is the debate, now they're going to talk about how they're not taking the fucking bait.
As the president of the United States, I mean, Americans are concerned about something like this. Hatch Act has nothing to do with any of this. He's not in the presidential race. He is a sitting president. But I think more importantly, I think the fact that he's not saying anything is indicative of the fact that he's probably tickled pink that he doesn't have to talk about the fact that he had classified documents that he shouldn't have ever possessed outside of a skiff as a United States senator, that we've got all of these issues having to do with the balloon. We just find out they told us, oh, it's just a climate balloon, and then we find out it's collecting information and sending it back to China. I think that his delay may be to keep other people out because everybody on the Democrat side is afraid to make him angry.
Harold, what's your take? Should the president say anything about Trump?
He should not. President Trump has been indicted. He has entered a plea of not guilty, and this process will unfold. I would, if it were any of us that were, God forbid, and I would not want any of us to be indicted and have to enter any plea, but I wouldn't want the president commenting on my case, and I would hope the president, in light of the fact it's a former president, he's the leading candidate, I would hope that President Biden would not react to it at all. Judge, so I disagree with you there, but I agree with, I think your point about the federal election law issues and the other cases, I think is probably one of the more interesting, if not brilliant, things that have been said as we think about this case. I don't know why he won't announce before August, but I think you're probably right. He's probably fending off things, and the politics of it, there's no doubt. If your top political adversary seems to be facing some adversity, there's no need for you to get in the way of that. So I understand this position that he's taken, but I hope whatever, he does not enter any opinion or offer an opinion about the case against President Trump.
Or make a gaffe in this sense. 150 plus suspicious activity reports against his family, Joe Biden. Maybe he's watching this and thinking, I don't want this to be me. Maybe I'll just go sit in the corner.
Yeah, did the big guy put the wires from China in the wrong ledger? Might want to look into those books. Biden's got his grubby little fingerprints on all of this stuff. If you think about it, the case was dead, right? Then Biden sends this partisan gunslinger from Justice into the DA's office, and suddenly they pump this thing back to life, number one. Number two, Biden spied on the Trump campaign, inserted undercover agents into the Trump campaign, and the Flynn sting was Joe's idea. Number three.
He's so right.
Do you want me to go on?
Yeah.
Okay. This guy is deep state. Biden plucks him out of nowhere. He's vice president. And all of a sudden, COVID comes along, and they catch and kill the laptop with big tech, and suddenly Biden doesn't even touch him, no antitrust. All of these intelligence officials fraudulently write a letter to kill this thing, and this stupid guy down in Delaware is sitting on Hunter Biden's crime-ridden computer that ties right back to the big guy, and they just sit on it. Come on. This guy is so involved in all this. He personally had to sign off on the Trump Mar-a-Lago raid. That's three.
Okay, I'll make it quick.
He went
He
went crackhead mode, okay? And I don't mean crack in the same way that like Hunter Biden did crack. They're going, this is what you do when you just have run out of like any other counter narrative, and you just start fucking flinging, okay? You just start swinging for the fucking fences. He's like, and then COVID happened. And when he was vice president, everybody knew that this was going to inevitably happen.
To go after Trump.
It's the deep state. It's the fucking deep state. It's awesome. Okay, so we've covered all the stuff that needed to be covered about this issue, this particular issue. Obviously, when there's more fun, cool shit, we will get back to it. However, this is the United States of America, and there are plenty of other issues that are ongoing in the United States of America.